Hey guys, Joshua Peterson, Peterson Electric. We're here today in Stapleton, Colorado on an inspections request for arc fault breakers having an issue. I think this house is probably about 10 years old, around 2005. It's only got 4 arc fault breakers and it has 4 bedrooms. So I'm assuming that's probably around 2005. The issue we're having today is they said that the breaker was blown, and so we came out and we tested it. Here's how I simply test some of my circuits to find out what's going on. I'll take a light bulb because it has a load on it and I can go through and test each phase and each breaker. Of course I'm going to the ground, my grounded conductor or my grounding conductor. I'm not going phase to phase on a light bulb, it would blow. But if I go and check my normal GFI that's not having an issue and I go to its neutral, I should be able to trip it just like that. Okay, and I can even test it with no circuits on it, so these wires are not even connected and it doesn't blow. Well, I replaced this breaker here just thinking it was a simple arc fault issue because it wouldn't test and reset anymore, and you can do that by pushing this button on there. So, you know, GEs are a little different here. They have a rocker type rather than Square D has a blue button, which is a push-in type. Or Siemens might have a yellow button, but anyways, so on here we just reset these and we think everything is good. Everything in the new one we're putting in is tripping too, whereas the old one was not. Well, the neutral is what is sensing through the bar to the breaker and from the breaker to the circuit. So actually it would be feeding from the circuit on the back side through this breaker to the neutral bar. So we're kind of interrupting it and putting this device in the line side before it hits the neutral bar, but it's being sensed on the series, the back side of the whole circuit. So whether we have a dimmer, a GFCI, a switch, photo eye, light socket, switches, dimmers, whatever, any of those items, it is sensing plugs, it's sensing everything coming into here after it's the back side of that circuit. So if we have any kind of spark or something going on, we'll know. Well, here's kind of something I saw a few years ago. Was a little bit scary, and you wouldn't think that you'd have any issue with your neutral and black, and you know you're on the same circuit because if any electrician was worth his salt, he'll put a piece of Romex here to basically identify that these two are the ones that will mate at the breaker. Well, I came in here to put these two on, and guess what? Boom. I've got current. How does that happen? Well, I'm trying to actually blow the system to figure out, because there's another circuit on here that is not arc faulted that is definitely tied and it's back feeding to the panel. So that's why this breaker blew in the first place. I saw this one other time about 8 years ago when arc fault started being pushed a lot heavier, and it blew the breaker out in the panel. It just smoked it. Gave it one shot. Well, this one actually has a little bit more grace because I put it on here and it didn't. So what I'm going to do is I simply took these two arc faults and swapped them to see if I could get this circuit to set. So this other circuit, which is, we'll just call it bedroom, whatever, 2 or 3, we're going to just put those back on because I know I don't have an issue with it. I was just trying to make sure that my arc faults were tripping with the circuit and without the circuit on it, with my light bulb and with their push cheek test button. So I'm good here. I know these 3 bedrooms are working. I'll just take each step one at a time to make sure it's right. I can now just go neutral to hot and test my circuit and it won't trip. Then I can test it again. Okay, so I know these 3 are off. They're resetting. This one I just want to make sure, am I getting juice out of my brand new breaker? And it's got its package right here, so I know that it wasn't opened. And I know I'm good right there. I know it's going to test with the rocker button. So this button is testing to what I can see. I never buy these at my big box stores or my wholesaler if they have any tape on them. Never buy them. Tell them that they shouldn't resell it, and just, you don't know if somebody blew it up and rewrapped it and got their 65 bucks back. So anyways, here I'm still getting current, boom, I can feel it vibrate, I can hear it buzz. So I could completely just keep faulting the system and offending it to see if I can get another breaker to blow. I want to know what circuit is it on. It won't pop. I'm not going to name any names, but some of the brands that I deal with, I don't like others versus others because they tolerate a little bit more of that, what we would call a welding effect before it's going to pop. And I've done this now 4 times, and I have not had that coil in one of these breakers heat up to tattletale, where's my neutral tie? So I think I might have a cheat here method. I'm going to put this guy back on. Evidently he is hot right now. Okay, it's hot. It's not tripping, it's not blowing. In fact, my breaker was in the on position when I loaded it back up. And I'll put my light bulb on it. Okay, same circuit, circuit 8. The light bulb is glowing. Nothing's tripping. If I touch them together, boom, I'm blowing right here. Now, if I come in here and I try tripping it, it will not trip. Not at all. So earlier, I took this breaker and this breaker and I put them in here. I don't want to do it again because that's the last breaker I have on the truck for today. And if I blow it, then I got to drive and come back. But if I put this one here on phase B versus A, so this is AB, AB. Well, I went to A and just swapped these two, but keeping that circuit in the same position of that breaker, circuit breaker 8. I moved it up. So basically I took out these guys get a little stuck. So I basically took out A and put B in place of it. And when I did, I actually blew it immediately. So that tells me that I have another breaker on an opposite phase where that neutral's tied that's going to blow it. So I'm still trying to figure this out as I'm talking to you. But I'm going to leave it in the same position. Okay, so we are in a single phase panel, residential, 2 hots, AB, AB. Reset's fine, but will not trip. But if I do it to circuit 6, it trips, or so forth. Every other arc fault in here. So here's what I did. I went through and said, okay, I'm going to use my light bulb as a load, and I'm going to come down here on each breaker and test to see if I can get one to trip. Now I'm going to try it on the neutral itself on that breaker having an issue, circuit 8. Might as well try just to see. No other bedrooms I don't think are tied. Because no matter what, an arc fault, if it senses a neutral off of another arc fault or a neutral bar or a ground bar, for that matter, I could just go to the cabinet and trip it because that's bonded at the first point of disconnect, this 200 amp breaker near the meter. All your neutrals and grounds are bonded together. It's the only place that you can do that in the code. So it's all bonded, so it doesn't matter if I touch here, here, as long as there's no enamel paint or I scratch it, then I could use even this piece that's pop riveted to screw down the panel. That would work too. But I can't get anything else to trip. So I'm going to take my chance here. I'm going to alter the phases. Just going to check this breaker, which is circuit 6, now circuit 8. I actually swapped the bedrooms. So if this was master bed and this was second, now it's going to be opposite. But I'm just trying to do this to see if I get a reaction. Boom. So it is definitely tripping on A phase. It won't even set now. Alright, so I'm going to actually swap. It's actually bedroom 3 and master bedroom. I'm going to swap them back. I'm going to put master bedroom down on the older breaker. Did you turn on any lights when you went upstairs? Because maybe the newer breaker will not tolerate me looking for another neutral. What I was trying to get to happen was to get the neutral to trip. So again, this is circuit 8, which is hot. Actually, it's not hot now. I think I might have just found it. Nope. Oh, look, I did get a breaker to trip. Right here, it's in the trip mode. We finally got it to trip by swapping the breakers and by testing that neutral. So let's reset this. And I always suggest trying to melt your system, but we got to figure out where that neutral starts. Otherwise, I'm going to be digging through a 3,000 square foot home and going, where do I start? Where do I stop? So hopefully the breaker is designed to do its job. And look at this meter spin up real fast. I once had a customer said that he was getting grounded on his gutter. And he said, my complaint is that my electricity bill went higher. And I said, well, do you got teenagers? Yeah. And I said, are you sure they're not leaving lights on and cooking a lot of food? He's like, no. So I said, okay, well, then you might have something going on. Sure enough, where we found the ground, which was grounded to the gutter, there was a lag that came through the back of the pergola and nicked the side of the wire of circuit bedroom 2. There was no arc fault on that system, but we came and tested it with an arc fault. It still wouldn't trip. So it was on the line side of all of the plugs and switches and lights. So therefore it wouldn't sense it. But what happened is you could see this meter come in closer. I'll show you how this meter will spin faster by inrushing the current when something's grounded out improperly. See that? That black tag? Look at that, how fast that was moving. Count it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, that wire's actually heating up. See, that's the bad thing about bad breakers, is that insulation, you think that 90 degrees Celsius wouldn't take, you know, maybe it would last a couple hours for some kind of circuit that's actually being grounded out and faulted. But this is actually heating up to a point that I could probably get my thermometer on it and you can feel how hot it's getting. I'm not getting shocked because the insulation's not cracked. If it was cracked, it may travel through my chest. But right here, that wire is still getting warm. But I cannot get this breaker to trip again. So what we're going to try to do here so evidently, let's see if it matters if it's an older or newer breaker. It may not. But I do know that this older breaker would no longer trip just with the test mode with a good circuit on it, or just in fact tripping it by its own test button. I kind of find that as a cheat method. I like the light bulb because then it tells me on the back side of the breaker if something's going to trip. So let's go ahead and set this. Let's see if this will pop once I hit it on the wrong phase. Nope. So your master bedroom now is actually down here on circuit 8, which is AB, B phase, and this is B phase. So if I get this to go to A phase on the old breaker, let's just swap them again. I want to see if the old breaker would even tolerate it, which is probably about 8 years old. Heck, I could leave this breaker out just to make sure it has nothing to do with the circuit I'm dealing with. This is the master bedroom wire. Boom! There it is. I just tripped 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, 19A. This is a 20 circuit panel with half breakers. So every time you count, for instance, if you say this is your oven, wall oven, well, this would be subpanel 1, 3, 5, 7. So you'd have 7A and 9B, excuse me, 7B and 9A would be a 220, so that might be a small AC unit. And for instance, the wall oven right here would be a 40 amp, that would be 1, 3, 5, 7. So you would have 5A and 7B. So when you deal with your half breakers, you have to half count it. Siemens does it, GE does it. Square D uses twins, not halves. But anyways, this is how we got it to trip. Bam. So now I don't have to go dig through the whole entire house, which it took me 30 minutes to figure out, but it sure as hell is cheaper and quicker for the customer than to go through the whole damn house and pull everything apart, including light fixtures. Now, 9 times out of 10, so many times your arc fault breaker issues will be in those light fixtures. I always walk in and say, how old is the home? How long have you lived here? Have you just remodeled? Oh yeah, oh I forgot to tell you I put up a couple ceiling fans. Bingo. Most likely the customer probably pinched a wire right there in the box. So anyway, so now we got a breaker here with an older breaker. Okay, so I didn't just need to take the newer breaker. The newer breakers won't have such a tolerance because they're brand new and hopefully they're getting better design from 8, 9 years later. But this breaker, boom, it blew before this guy blew. So the older breaker was actually better to test with to make this fault because this was blowing last time before this blew. Well, this arc fault evidently is getting worn down, or maybe it's just, you know, not working as well. I'm not sure. But what I want to do here is I would like to have a testing breaker on my truck. Needless to say, this is the third bedroom I was dealing with. This is the master steel. Okay, so if I keep this breaker off, I should be able to set all of these breakers because this breaker is off. Okay, this is third bedroom, master bedroom on an old breaker because I moved it 6 and 8. These two I have not touched. This is probably bedroom 1 and 2 here, or guest in 2. So those I haven't messed with 2 and 4. But as soon as I decide to reset this, I should blow this guy in master bedroom again. Boom. Here's our issue. These two, if they're on the same phase, will not have an issue because the neutral will not be overloaded. Again, back to science, you are dealing with a 60 hertz cycle circuit in any residential and commercial area in the United States. We're not in Europe where it's 50 hertz. So that means the cycle of a single phase system on A and B is collapsing 60 times every second. So during the time that's collapsing, with 2 hots, you have a circle. So in that circle, your phase is going to break apart at 180 degrees opposite of each other in that circle of that sine wave collapsing. Well, on a 3-phase system, you're going to have A, B, and C. So the square root of 1.73 is called a 3-phase, and therefore your cycle of 360 will collapse 120 degrees out of phase. So A and B and C will never ride with each other. But that is very important that when you're taking your juice from your bus bar, that you don't have a black and a red here mixed up, and let's say it's going to be black and red down here, which you're hitting the same phase. Black and red have to be opposite in their phases, so therefore on a split bus bar panel, in a split half panel, or a full bus bar panel, you have to make sure that your tie handles are correct and that you're not overloading your neutral. Anyways, that gets kind of deep for those of you that understand the neutral side of it in electricity. I had a doctor once in his big house where his circuits were melting in a couple multi-branch circuits because of the fact that whoever installed these breakers or replaced some of them, they mixed up their phasing. So anyways, it's back to this on the arc fault. We know we have an issue here, so we're going to go to the panel. We're hoping that an 8-year-old home panel hasn't been tampered with too much. It looks like the Sharpie is all the same color. It looks like it's not faded or it was rewritten over or re-stickered. It looks like they didn't change color Sharpie, and the penmanship looks exactly the same. So I'm going to assume that we have an issue in the master bedroom retreat. That is, right there. Now, technically, if I just put this thing right back, circuit 8, this video is going to be a little long, I'm sorry, but this is the best way to explain this. If I put circuit 6 back, and I put circuit 8 back, which is the master bedroom, I should be able to reset this. No breakers blown. It's on the same phase. This is on B phase, that's now back on B phase. But I got it to trip with both of them on. That arc fault actually detected what I just did on a neutral. It's sensing it over here now, which is good. And I got it to trip as normal here. But see, now I can't even just test it on its own neutral like I can the other circuits. So let's see how that reacts with a brand new arc fault, GE. This is a 10,000 AIC fault current breaker. It's a residential type, it's real standard and generic. So again, it doesn't matter that I'm changing the neutral between the pigtails because they're the same. It doesn't matter one bit. I'm not mixing up my neutral and hots. So how do I remember? Well, that's not arcing, but this one will arc again. Because again, this breaker's on. If I turn off 19A, which is master bedroom retreat, no spark. Therefore, that's a triple way for showing myself that that's where I need to start. Anyways, I'm going to swap these two breakers out, put my brand new GE in there. I've got a black handle reset, which is nice, so I know the difference between the two. I'm going to go ahead and stick on bedroom 3, which has nothing to do with it. Sometimes you could have issues with bedroom 3 and master circuit or any of the bedrooms in the master bedroom because they're right next to each other. And maybe they tied them together right where they came in the hallway. Or right in the bathroom switch. That's where neutrals start getting tied, is typically in your switches. So right here, we're going to put this guy back on. Okay, 2, 4, 6 are on. Back to circuit 8 master bedroom. Sets just fine. Let's check it. Will it light up this time? Yes, it will. Let's see if it trips on the neutral. Still will not trip. Now, you saw with the older arc fault, it tripped right over here, this breaker. See, with the newer arc fault, it won't trip. So I don't know how to tell you the difference between new and old. I just know that I'm trying to use this method of testing in order to figure out, how do I figure out what is going on with this system by new and old breakers. Sometimes I like to keep these older breakers on the truck and label them with a date knowing I tested with it. So let's see, this is her original breaker. Maybe I don't have to sell her a breaker here. We're just going to go ahead and connect this to any neutral bar. The other thing, guys, I would check, no offense to this electrician who wired, but he kind of got in a rush on a Friday, I think. some of his neutrals and grounds were a little loose when I got in here. Aluminum tends to expand and contract, but copper doesn't tend to do that. It's typically because people just don't land them too well. So you got to make sure that's landed and tight. Sometimes things will trip just because they're loose in the panel. So we'll go back to her original breaker, the original spot. I found this about 40 minutes ago. See, the problem with this breaker is that that arc fault's already shunted and blown out. Cut that.
Just cut it. I don't